Echo Stream Protocol, Unraveling the Mystery. Kiera sat in a sterile waiting room, anticipation thick in the air. Director Zane's imposing figure entered. Your implant is complete. Colors intensified, sounds deepened, Kiera's senses ignited. Aaron wore an air of intense focus as she explored the neural link. Something wasn't right. Doubt crept into Kiera's mind. Theo's solemn expression held a warning. Interference in your implant. Forbidden texts revealed the true nature of the neural link. Memory manipulation, emotion control, a sinister system unveiled. Kiera's thoughts raced as she confronted the dark truth. Theo stood by her side, determined to expose the neural link's deception. Their investigation was a ticking time bomb. Discovery meant danger. Aaron's holographic projection revealed tension beneath her cheerful facade. Kiera sensed Aaron's memories were being manipulated, just like hers. The truth remained hidden, but the trio was now bound by a desperate quest for answers. Like and subscribe for more stories like this one. Her heart raced as she sat in the sterile, gray-walled waiting room. The air was thick with anticipation and a faint scent of disinfectant. Kiera couldn't help but fidget with her hands, nervously smoothing out the wrinkles on her pants. The door slid open and a tall, imposing figure entered. "Kiera," he said in a deep, authoritative voice. "I'm Director Zane. You're scheduled for your neural link implant today." Nodding, Kiera stood up, trying to appear calm despite the butterflies in her stomach. She'd heard mixed opinions about the procedure, but she was excited to be on the cutting edge of this revolutionary technology. The promise of a life-enhancing experience, as they called it, was too enticing to resist. Director Zane escorted her into an examination room where she lay down on a cold metal table. A technician in surgical scrubs appeared and began prepping her for the procedure. Kiera closed her eyes, focusing on steady breathing to calm her nerves. The next thing she knew, someone was gently shaking her awake. She blinked open her eyes to see Director Zane standing over her, holding what looked like a small metallic cuff in his hand. "Your neural link implant is complete," he announced with a smile. "Welcome to the future." Kiera sat up, wincing slightly as she touched the newly implanted device on her wrist. It felt smooth and sleek, almost unnoticeable beneath her skin. She glanced around for any changes to her surroundings, but everything seemed normal. Just then, her comlink beeped. Director Zane handed it back to her. "This should be activated now," he said. "You can begin exploring your new neural link capabilities." Kiera hesitated for a moment before accepting the device. As soon as she strapped it onto her ear, the world transformed around her. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds clearer and deeper. She could sense subtle changes in her environment that would have been imperceptible before. Feeling exhilarated by this new connection to reality, Kiera stood up, eager to experiment with her enhanced senses. Director Zane smiled approvingly at her reaction, clearly pleased with the initial success of his program. "Remember, your neural link is not just a tool," he reminded her as she left the room. "It's an extension of yourself. Learn to trust it and embrace its power." Kiera nodded, still absorbing this profound shift in perception. She walked out into the bright sunlight, marveling at how every detail of the world now seemed richer and more alive than ever before. The neural link was truly a remarkable invention, but she couldn't shake off a tiny, persistent doubt creeping into her mind. Was it too good to be true? As Kiera stepped out onto the city streets, she felt a giddy thrill at her newfound abilities. Everything seemed sharper, more immediate. She could feel the thrum of electricity in the air from the massive skyscrapers that loomed over her, sense the faintest hint of spices wafting from street vendors, even hear individual conversations and thoughts of those around her. The world was alive with sensation, and Kiera reveled in it. Those around her, if she focused hard enough, it was as if she'd been given a superpower. She couldn't wait to share these discoveries with Aaron. The two friends had always been inseparable, despite their vastly different personalities. Kiera, the introspective dreamer, Aaron, the outgoing pragmatist. They balanced each other out perfectly. Now, armed with this revolutionary technology, they could explore new heights of connection and understanding. Excitement bubbled up in her chest as she made her way through the bustling crowds. She couldn't help but smile at passers-by, feeling a growing sense of solidarity with every person she encountered. It was as if their neural links were forging an invisible web of trust among citizens. And with that trust came a certain security, a reassurance that they were all working together towards some greater good. Soon, Kira arrived at Aaron's apartment building. She took the elevator up to her friend's floor and knocked on the door. "Come in," Aaron called out cheerfully. Kira entered to find Aaron sitting on the couch, engrossed in a virtual reality simulation. She wore an air of intense focus, her eyes darting rapidly between different images and data streams projected by the neural link. Kira's gaze lingered for a moment on the sleek white device planted in the middle of Aaron's forehead. It looked so natural there, as if it had grown right out of her brain. "Hey!" Aaron looked up, noticing Kira. Her eyes widened with enthusiasm. "You're back, and you got your link too, let me see." Kira held up her own device. Aaron scrambled over to inspect the implant. "Wow, isn't it great?" she breathed. "Just think about what we can do together now." She paused, a mischievous glint appearing in her eyes. "Want to test out our new abilities? See if they're as reliable as everyone says?" Kira grinned, feeling an echo of that initial excitement from her own neural link activation. Together, the friends began exploring their enhanced senses and capabilities, sharing thoughts, emotions, memories. It was exhilarating to experience reality in such a profound way. But as their session wore on, Kira started to notice something odd. Aaron seemed more reactive, more easily influenced by others' opinions and desires, like she'd become almost one with the crowd around her. And though they were having fun together, their conversation felt slightly stilted, less spontaneous than usual. It was as if Aaron had become an extension of the collective consciousness that pervaded the city streets. Kira didn't dwell on it too much. Maybe it just took time to adjust to this new way of being, but a flicker of doubt remained, buried deep beneath her initial elation with the neural link. She pushed it aside for now, not wanting to dampen the euphoria that had settled over them both. As she prepared to leave Aaron's apartment, Kira glanced at her friend one last time. There was something almost serene about the way she sat there, eyes closed, utterly absorbed by whatever digital realm she'd entered. A sense of contentment and peace radiated from Aaron like a warm glow. But it also made Kira feel slightly uncomfortable, as if she were witnessing something profoundly intimate. "See you later," Kira said lightly, trying to shake off the unease. As she exited into the bright sunlight again, she couldn't help but wonder, was this truly what humanity had been craving all along, a life of effortless bliss and harmony? Or was there more to the neural link than met the eye? She decided to table these questions for now, content to enjoy her newfound abilities alongside Aaron. But as she walked home through the city streets, Kira couldn't entirely silence that growing whisper in the back of her mind. Something wasn't quite right. Kira's apartment was dimly lit when she arrived home, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors and pulsing energy that seemed to emanate from her neural link. She felt slightly disoriented as she fumbled for the light switch, wondering if it was just exhaustion or something else at play. As the room brightened, Kira noticed Theo waiting in her living room, his expression somber. "Hey," he said quietly as she approached, "I need to talk to you about your implant." Kira's heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong? There seems to be some interference." Theo held up a small device with a tangled web of wires and circuits. He handed her the device, which felt warm in her hand. "Me." Theo's face paled as he studied the drawing. There are no such beings in our world, but there was a similar creature mentioned in some old forbidden texts I found during my research on the Neuralink project. Kira's eyes widened. Forbidden texts? You mean there's more to this story than what Director Zane and his team let us know? Theo nodded gravely. "I think so. The Neuralink is much more sophisticated and potentially dangerous than they've made it seem. It could be used for far more than just monitoring citizens or enhancing their lives. Kira felt her stomach drop. What about Aaron? Has she noticed anything unusual? Not yet, but that doesn't mean it's not happening to her too. Theo glanced at Kira with a serious expression. I think we need to investigate further and confront Director Zane directly. We have to know the truth behind this project. Kira hesitated, unsure if she was ready to delve deeper into the mystery surrounding the neural links. Part of her wanted to trust the promises made by Director Zane and his team, that they were creating a utopian society through technology. But another part of her feared the worst, sensing that there was more at stake than just citizen happiness. Let's do it, she said finally, squaring her shoulders. But first, we need to figure out what this device is and who built it. She held up the mysterious antenna/Shiver, her mind racing with possibilities. With Theo by her side, Kira felt a surge of determination wash over her. They were about to unravel the secrets behind the neural link, no matter where that journey might lead them. As she looked out at the city through her window, Kira wondered how many other citizens like herself had already begun experiencing the dark side of this perfect system. Would she be able to expose the truth before it was too late? And if so, what would the consequences be for those in power and for the entire society that had embraced these neural links as a solution to their problems? Implant and delete memories. They're talking about erasing entire chunks of people's lives. Theo nodded grimly. It's all here. How they design these protocols to target specific emotions and experiences. This isn't just about surveillance, it's about creating a society where no one remembers anything that might be detrimental to the greater good. Kira felt her stomach turn as she skimmed through the documents, her thoughts racing with implications of this technology in their world. This explains why Aaron started acting so strange, she said, recalling her friend's sudden change in behavior after getting her neural link implant. Her memories were being altered. Kira asked herself aloud, and mine? All those moments I couldn't explain, the images that felt like they weren't my own. They must be part of this too. Panic began to set in as she realized just how deeply she'd been affected by these memory manipulation techniques. Theo, sensing her distress, placed a comforting hand on Kira's shoulder. We have to expose this, he said firmly. The public needs to know what's happening. But Director Zane, he must be aware of everything that's going on, Kira replied, her voice wavering with fear. If we confront him directly, will he just try to silence us? Theo frowned thoughtfully. We need a solid plan. I can work on hacking into more databases, but we also need someone who knows the ins and outs of this system, like Aaron, or maybe even an insider at the neural link department. We'll have to be careful, Kira warned. If they discover our investigation, it could mean imprisonment or worse. Theo's expression hardened. Then we'll just have to make sure no one finds out. He looked at her intently. We're in this together now, Kira. Whatever risks come with uncovering the truth, I'm ready to face them side by side. As they devised their plan, the shadows outside Kira's apartment window grew longer and darker. The late afternoon had morphed into an uneasy twilight, a fitting atmosphere for the clandestine operation unfolding within those walls. Theo pulled up a chair beside her, his eyes scanning the clutter of papers strewn across the coffee table as he spoke. We'll need to gather more evidence before we approach Director Zane directly. I can try accessing employee files or memos within the Neuralink department, see if there are any clues about their true intentions. Kira nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities and dangers. She rose from the couch, walking over to the window. Her gaze fell upon a peculiar device perched atop the fire escape's railing, an antenna-like structure with a small screen and buttons that seemed out of place amidst the city skyline. What is this thing? She muttered, turning back to Theo. Aaron might know. She mentioned seeing strange equipment at her worksite. That's a good point, he agreed. We should reach out to her as soon as possible. Just then, Kira's neural link began to glow softly. Link chimed softly with an incoming message from Aaron. She hesitated for a moment before accepting it, unsure if the links were being monitored. The holographic projection of her friend materialized above the coffee table. "Hey, how's your adjustment going?" Erin asked brightly, though there was a hint of strain behind her cheerful tone. "It's complicated," Kira replied cautiously, keeping an eye on Theo. "I've been having some weird glitches and visions. I don't know if it's just my imagination or—" Erin's expression flickered with concern before she quickly masked it. "Oh, that sounds like the normal settling period. You'll get used to it soon enough." Her words were reassuring, but Kira detected a subtle unease beneath them. "Maybe," Kira said hesitantly, "but sometimes I see things, memories or scenarios that aren't mine, and now you're talking about normal glitches." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Aaron, do you ever feel like your thoughts are being influenced somehow? Like there's something else guiding them?" Aaron laughed nervously, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "Of course not. I'm loving this new life, honestly. It feels more connected than before." Kira sensed Erin was hiding something, but she couldn't pinpoint what or why. Theo's presence seemed to urge caution within her. She decided to probe further. "Connected, like how?" she asked, trying to sound nonchalant while her mind raced with possibilities. Erin shrugged. "I don't know, just that everything seems clearer now, more efficient." The vagueness in her voice sent a chill down Kira's spine. Theo cleared his throat softly. "Kiera was asking because she's been experiencing some strange occurrences herself." Erin's gaze snapped back to her friend, a flicker of fear crossing her face before being hastily concealed once more. "Oh, really? Maybe it's related to your implant settling then. Like I said, give it time." "Time?" Kira interjected, her voice edged with frustration and growing unease. "Aaron, these aren't just glitches. What if we're not in control anymore?" The screen went dark as Aaron abruptly disconnected the call, leaving Kira staring at the empty space where her friend's image had been. "She knew," Theo stated flatly, his eyes locked onto hers with an unspoken warning. "Kiera, it seems like your suspicions were right. There is more to this neural link system than meets the eye." "But what?" she whispered, fear creeping up her throat as the implications sank in. Whatever was happening, they were both entangled in its web now, and uncovering the truth would be no simple feat. Theo stood, his face set with determination. "We need to find out more. Tonight." He glanced at the darkening window where that strange antenna device still loomed ominously. "Let's get moving. We have a lot of ground to cover before sunrise." The cool night air enveloped Kira as she and Theo hurried through deserted streets, their footsteps echoing off the towering buildings that loomed over them like sentinels of oppression. The darkness seemed to swallow everything in its path, but the city was far from asleep. The ever-present hum of surveillance drones and the distant buzz of neural links served as constant reminders of the pervasive presence of the regime. Theo led Kira towards a nondescript alleyway where an old, rusted van waited with its engine already running. "This is our ride," he explained tersely, ushering her inside before climbing in behind the wheel. The worn leather seats creaked under their weight as Theo navigated through narrow streets, expertly avoiding the more heavily patrolled areas. "I've got a contact who might be willing to help us out," he said after they'd put some distance between themselves and Kira's apartment. "He's an ex-tech who used to work on the Neural Link project before getting disillusioned with what they were doing." Theo glanced at her, his expression serious. "His name is Jax. I haven't seen him in years, but if anyone can provide us with insight into the system, it'd be him." The van lurched as Theo turned onto a wider avenue lined with dilapidated warehouses and disused factories. The area was run down, abandoned, and largely ignored by the authorities, the perfect place to conduct clandestine activities without drawing attention. Theo parked the vehicle behind one of these warehouses and cut the engine, allowing the silence to settle over them like a shroud. "Stay close," he murmured, opening his door and stepping out into the night. Kira followed suit, her heart pounding in anticipation of what lay ahead. Jax awaited them inside the warehouse, concealed in shadows amid stacks of rotting crates and discarded machinery. His appearance was unremarkable. Average height, scraggly beard, worn denim jacket, but his eyes held a sharp intelligence that hinted at a deeper knowledge. "What do you need?" he asked gruffly when Theo introduced Kira and explained their situation. Theo summarized the strange occurrences they'd experienced since receiving the neural links, concluding with Kira's suspicion of deliberate memory manipulation. "I can confirm that there are indeed glitches in the system, but it goes further than just erratic function. The neural link technology is designed to alter memories and implant new ones at will, not just for data transmission or control." Kira's eyes widened in horror as she grasped the full extent of their predicament. "This explains Aaron's behavior," Theo stated grimly, his jaw clenched with anger. "She's been under some kind of influence. Her memory is manipulated to keep her compliant and loyal." Jax nodded. Kira felt like she'd been punched in the gut, her breath escaping in a shaky gasp. The truth about their world was far more sinister than she had ever imagined. "But we can fight back," Theo said resolutely, his gaze locking onto Kira's with an unspoken promise of defiance. "We'll expose the neural link program for what it is, a weapon of mass control and manipulation." Jax offered them a faint smile. "I can help you there. I've got access to some old project files that might be useful in your investigation. We just need to get them out safely." As they began discussing their next steps, Kira's mind raced with the implications of what they'd discovered. The neural links were not merely a means of information exchange or a tool for improving citizen behavior. They were a device designed to fundamentally alter and control human consciousness. In that moment, she knew that her life would never be the same again. She had stumbled into something much bigger than herself, a struggle against an oppressive regime bent on reshaping reality itself, and she was ready to fight back. Kira's mind reeled as the gravity of their situation settled in, but Theo remained focused on the task at hand. "First things first," he said, glancing around the dimly lit warehouse to ensure they were alone. "We need to get out of here without being detected." He pulled a small device from his pocket and handed it to Kira. "This is a tracker jammer. It'll prevent them from locating us, at least for a while." She took it gratefully, her hands trembling slightly as she activated the device. With its soft hum of energy, their movements became obscured from any prying eyes or ears. Theo's next task was to retrieve Jax's project files, which they hoped would serve as evidence against Director Zane and his sinister plans. Jax led them through the labyrinthine warehouse, pausing occasionally at old crates and containers until he found what he sought, a nondescript metal box with multiple locks. "This is it," he murmured, pulling out a set of lockpicks from an inside pocket of his coat. His nimble fingers worked swiftly, the sound of clicking gears filling the air as each lock yielded. Finally, Jax popped open the box, revealing stacks of papers and data disks within. He began sorting through them urgently, extracting specific files before shoving everything else back into the container. Kira and Theo watched in silence, their anxiety palpable but under control. They knew they were racing against time. Every passing moment brought them closer to being discovered. Once Jax had gathered what he needed, they set off once more, moving stealthily through the warehouse as they made their way toward an exit Jax had previously scouted out. The tension was palpable, each step bringing them closer to freedom and further from capture. As they approached the door leading outside, Theo paused to glance over his shoulder at Kira. "We're almost there," he whispered reassuringly, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "Just a few more seconds." His words trailed off as he gently pushed open the door, motioning for her and Jax to follow him into the cool night air. Outside, they found themselves in an alleyway, its shadows concealing them from prying eyes. Theo breathed a sigh of relief as Kira stepped up beside him, their shoulders brushing in solidarity against the unknown dangers that lay ahead. Jax joined them shortly afterward, handing each of his companions a data disk before stashing the rest away for safekeeping. "We should be good to go now," he said quietly, wiping sweat from his brow as he gazed up at the night sky. "Time to spread this information far and wide." With renewed purpose, the trio turned toward the city's heart, their steps quickening in anticipation of what lay ahead, a confrontation with those who would stop at nothing to maintain their grip on power. As they walked, Kira couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that Director Zane was watching her every move. The weight of his ruthless ambition bore down upon them like an oppressive shadow, threatening to snuff out any hope for change. Yet she refused to yield. Armed with truth and determination, Kira was ready to take on the darkness head-on. The trio continued on their way, the night air filled with unspoken resolve as they ventured deeper into the heart of a city that had become a battleground for freedom and autonomy. Kira's heart raced as she approached Director Zane's office. She had spent hours rehearsing her argument, preparing to confront the man who controlled the city's neural links and therefore its citizens' very minds. Theo remained by her side, his hand resting reassuringly on the small of her back. Jax was supposed to join them, but he hadn't shown up yet. Theo knocked softly on the door. It swung open with a hiss of hydraulics. Director Zane sat behind his desk, his piercing gaze fixed on Kira and Theo as if assessing their worthiness to stand before him. "Kira mia nia," he said in a voice that carried the weight of authority. "I'm surprised you've managed to remain undetected for so long." "I'm not here to play games, Director Zane." Her tone was firm, but inside she trembled with anxiety and rage. This man had orchestrated the erasure of countless memories, suppressing dissent and free will in the name of social harmony. "I have proof that your neural links aren't just monitoring citizens. They're actively altering their thoughts." Zane's expression remained impassive, though a flicker of surprise briefly crossed his features before being replaced by calculated indifference. "You've been misinformed," he lied smoothly. "Our technology enhances your life, providing invaluable assistance and insights to keep you safe and content. By making us forget our own desires, our dreams, our history, by turning us into mindless drones who can't even question the status quo." "Questioning is a luxury of the ignorant," Zane replied, his voice dripping with disdain. "We've made your lives better by eliminating strife and discord. You have no need for such petty concerns." Theo stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "You're lying to us, to everyone. The neural links are weapons in your arsenal of control." He glanced at Kira, encouraging her to continue. Kira drew a deep breath before launching into the heart of their accusation. "Jax uncovered files from Project Elysium, proof that you've been systematically erasing citizens' memories to maintain your stranglehold on power. People like my friend Aaron, who's begun to notice something is terribly wrong with her own mind." Zane's mask began to slip, a hint of panic creeping into his eyes before he regained control. "Project Elysium was merely an experiment, unsuccessful and discontinued," he maintained, though the lie sounded increasingly strained. Kira pressed on, fueled by righteous anger and desperation. "We have evidence of everything you've done, Director Zane, and we're not going to let you get away with it." Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside the office. Shouts and screams pierced the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. The door burst open, and Jack stumbled in, his clothes torn and covered in blood. "Director," he gasped, struggling to remain on his feet. "They're here! They've found me! They'll come for you next!" Zane's face contorted with rage and fear. He slammed his fist onto the desk, sending papers flying. "Secure the building immediately," he bellowed at unseen guards. Theo quickly assessed their situation, his mind racing. "We need to get out of here, now," he said urgently to Kira and Jax. "Director Zane won't stop until we're silenced." As chaos reigned around them, Kira knew the time was running out. She had to expose the truth about the neural links before Director Zane could destroy the evidence, or them. With a deep breath, she turned back to face her nemesis. "This isn't over," she warned him. "We'll keep fighting until you're brought to justice." Zane's eyes blazed with fury as he glared at Kira and her companions. But beneath his anger, she detected something else. Fear of the truth being revealed and the power that came with it. "We'll see about that," he snarled before turning away from them, issuing commands to his guards. "You won't live long enough to expose me." As the three fugitives fled Director Zane's office, Theo led the way through winding corridors. Kara could hear Zane's angry shouts fading in the distance, but she knew he wouldn't give up so easily. "We need to find a secure location where we can access the neural link servers," Theo said over his shoulder. "Once inside, I should be able to pinpoint the exact data breaches and transmit the evidence out of here." Jax glanced back at Kira with concern etched on his face. "Are you sure about this? We could get caught, or worse, the system might be rigged against us. The risks are high. But what choice do we have? We can't let Director Zane silence us before we expose the truth." She gripped her makeshift weapon tightly. "Let's move. Every second counts." They navigated through several twists and turns until Theo stopped abruptly at a nondescript door. "This is it," he whispered, inserting an access card into the reader. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Inside the room, rows of servers hummed quietly, their screens blinking with data streams. "That's it, the primary storage for neural link monitoring and memory control." He approached the machine cautiously, scanning its surface until he found an access panel. Kira watched as he worked swiftly to crack open the server. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Theo knows what he's doing." Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility, accompanied by muffled shouts from unseen guards. "What's happening? We weren't detected before. How did they find us?" His brow furrowed as he frantically typed away at the server. Kira's heart raced. They had to move fast before reinforcements arrived. "We need to move now," Jax hissed urgently, grabbing her arm and pulling her away from the machine. "Almost there. Just a few more seconds." But it was clear he'd be unable to transmit their evidence in time. Kira's heart sank as she realized they were about to be overrun by security forces. "We're out of options," Jax muttered, his eyes darting around the room for any escape route. "Theo, hit send," Kira urged. "I've got it. The files are encrypted and ready to transmit." He reached out to hit send when a group of heavily armed guards burst into the room, aiming their weapons at them. "Director Zane wants these rebels alive for questioning," one guard growled. The others lowered their weapons but remained poised to strike. "Theo, what's happening?" Kira asked, her voice shaking with fear. "Director Zane must have anticipated our move," Theo replied grimly. "He sent a team to intercept us." Theo's eyes darted around the room, searching for any means of escape or resistance. Fear and defiance in his eyes. "You'll never stop us," he spat out, even as Kira could see him slowly back away from the machine. "We've already sent the evidence. It's too late for you." The lead guard sneered at Theo before turning to Kira and Jax. "Search them for any devices or data storage." He ordered his men, who quickly rifled through their clothing, confiscating Theo's access card and any other potential tools. Kira watched in horror as the guards handcuffed and dragged away her friends, all because they dared to expose the truth about the neural links. She was left standing alone amidst the chaos, knowing that she too could be taken prisoner at any moment. Just then, a faint signal reached out from Theo's access card, which had fallen to the floor during the search. It was the encoded data from the server, their evidence against Director Zane and his Neuralink program. The card had activated an automatic transmission system to send it to an anonymous drop site on the darknet. The data would be impossible to trace back to them, leaving Director Zane vulnerable to public scrutiny and potential fallout from the leak. But even as hope stirred within her, Kira knew they weren't safe yet. She could already hear the distant sounds of approaching police sirens responding to reports of a massive hack into the Neuralink system. The situation was escalating rapidly, threatening to engulf everything in its path. Outside, the city raged with protests and chaos as more and more citizens learned about the dark secrets behind their neural links. Armed guards patrolled the streets, enforcing curfews and attempting to quell the unrest. In the midst of it all, Kira stood defiantly, a symbol of resistance against an oppressive regime. Her friends were gone, but their cause lived on in her. She would keep fighting for truth and freedom, no matter what Director Zane or his forces threw at her. The game had changed. Now she was ready to play. The city was ablaze with protests, a sea of angry faces illuminated by flickering streetlights. Kira stood at the front lines, her fists clenched as she chanted slogans against Director Zane's regime alongside thousands of others. "We are not your slaves," one protester shouted into a bullhorn. Kira joined in, her voice hoarse from shouting. "We demand justice." Aaron stood beside her, eyes blazing with determination. They had spent countless hours building alliances and spreading information about the Neuralink conspiracy. It was no longer just Kira's fight, it belonged to every citizen who longed for freedom. Suddenly, a police helicopter descended overhead, shining its spotlight onto the crowd like a merciless eye. The protesters scattered, but Kira remained still, her gaze locked on Zane's symbol painted on the chopper's side, a twisted amalgamation of a neural link and a sword. Theo appeared by her side, his voice urgent in her ear. "Kira, we need to get out of here, now." She nodded, already turning to make her way back through the dispersing crowd. As they pushed forward, Kira felt a hand grab hers, Aaron's fingers interlocking with hers as if refusing to let go. "Stick together," Theo whispered, his grip on their shoulders steadying them against the surging tide of people. A police blockade stood before them, officers armed with riot gear and neural-linked batons. The air crackled with anticipation, the crowd holding its collective breath as the standoff began. Kira raised her arms above her head, shouting defiance at the line of officers. "You can't silence us, we won't be controlled." Aaron echoed her cries, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kira and Theo. The police hesitated, unsure how to respond to this bold show of resistance from three young individuals who had already proven themselves a thorn in Zane's side. And then the first officer stepped forward, his baton humming as he charged at Kira. Theo pushed her behind him just in time for the blow to strike. Pain lanced through his body, but he managed to keep his feet, shielding Kira and Aaron from further attacks until reinforcements arrived to overpower them. As she was hauled away by officers, Kira glanced back and saw Theo crumpled on the ground, his neural link glinting in the dim light. He had sacrificed himself to protect her, just as he always did. In a cell deep beneath the city, Kira sat on the cold metal bench, her wrists and ankles manacled by heavy chains. She could feel the weight of Zane's regime crushing down upon them all. But even in this darkness, she refused to give up. For Theo, for Aaron, for every citizen caught in the web of oppression, Kira would fight until her last breath. She closed her eyes, imagining a world where freedom reigned supreme, and the neural link was nothing more than a relic of a dystopian nightmare. And then she opened them again, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The struggle had only just begun. The days blurred together in Kira's cell, each marked by fits of rage against her captors or moments of desperate planning with whatever meager resources she could scrounge. Theo's sacrifice, though it broke her heart, only fueled her determination to see this fight through. Aaron, also imprisoned for refusing to cooperate with the Neuralink program, became her closest ally in the dark confines of their underground cell. Through whispered conversations and occasional notes passed during shared meals, Kira learned that Aaron had begun experiencing strange gaps in her memories after the procedure went awry. Like Kira, she too suffered from fragmented visions that weren't her own, leaving them both with more questions than answers about the Neuralink's true capabilities. The news of their confinement ignited a flame within Aaron. She began organizing secret meetings with other inmates and even managed to smuggle in forbidden books detailing past revolutions against totalitarian regimes. Kira watched in awe as Aaron transformed from an apathetic follower into a beacon of defiance, inspiring hope where once there was only despair. One evening, a faint tapping on the cell door interrupted their hushed discussions. Before they could react, the heavy metal slab swung open to reveal none other than Technician Theo, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes stained with dirt and sweat. Kira gasped in shock as Aaron grabbed her hand for reassurance, both of them questioning if this was just another cruel hallucination brought on by their captivity. "Theo, is that really you?" Aaron asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Theo nodded slowly, his gaze darting between the two women. "I managed to escape during a shift change," he explained hurriedly. "I had to act fast before they discovered I'd helped Kira and Aaron with the hack. Zane's forces are closing in on all of us." Kiera felt her heart race as she stepped forward, eager for any news from the outside world. "Theo, what about Director Zane? Have you found anything that could help us expose him?" The engineer hesitated before handing Kiera a data crystal. "This contains everything I've been able to gather on the neural link's development and the extent of its control over citizens' minds. It's not much, but it might be enough for others to start asking questions." Aaron looked at Theo with suspicion. "How did you get this past the guards?" Theo shrugged. "I may have bribed a few sympathetic souls along the way," he said with a weak smile. Kiera took the data crystal, her mind already racing with ways to disseminate the information and build momentum against their oppressors. "We need to get this evidence out into the open as quickly as possible. The people deserve to know what's really going on." Theo nodded in agreement, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. "I've tried to hack into the government's mainframe to broadcast it globally, but their firewalls are too strong. We're running out of options." Erin glanced at Kiera, a glimmer of desperation in her eyes. "We have to do something tonight," she said firmly. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to catch us. The more time passes, the harder it'll be to expose Zane's regime." Kiera nodded resolutely, her mind already racing with possible escape plans and strategies for disseminating their evidence. They were running out of options, but she knew that with Theo on their side and Erin's determination fueling them all, they could still turn the tide against Director Zane and his oppressive forces. Together, they devised a desperate plan to break free from the cell block and make their way to the heart of the city, where the key players in this struggle would gather. It was a long shot at best, but with so much riding on their success, Kiera knew they had no choice but to try. And so, as the hours ticked by under the cover of darkness, the trio prepared themselves for a final confrontation that could either free them all or leave them shattered beneath the city's oppressive heel. Inside their cell beneath the city, Kiera, Aaron, and Theo worked tirelessly throughout the night, refining their escape plan and rehearsing every possible contingency. The air was thick with tension, their determination to expose Director Zane's regime overriding any fear of the unknown that awaited them. At last, as the first hints of dawn crept into the darkness outside their cell, they were ready. Kiera and Erin suited up in makeshift black outfits Theo had crafted from spare parts he'd smuggled into their quarters over the past few weeks. Each carried a pack loaded with tools and gadgets designed to circumvent security measures and weapons for close combat. Theo, meanwhile, donned a plain gray jumpsuit to blend in with the other inmates. His hands were secured behind his back by thick plastic cuffs, an unspoken concession from Kiera, who'd insisted he accompany them on their mission despite knowing he couldn't participate actively. A plan was to free him once they reached a safe location. As they prepared to leave, Erin hesitated at the cell door, her eyes flicking between Kiera and Theo with a mix of trepidation and resolve. "Remember what we're fighting for," she said softly, as if reassuring herself more than them. "We have each other's backs." Kiera nodded firmly, offering a reassuring smile that felt brittle beneath the surface. She reached out to clasp Aaron's hand briefly before releasing it and stepping forward. With Theo sandwiched between them, they exited their cell block, moving swiftly through the deserted corridors in search of the ventilation shafts they'd mapped earlier. Their first hurdle proved more challenging than anticipated. A pair of guards on routine patrol appeared at a junction ahead, forcing Kiera to improvise quickly. She and Aaron flattened themselves against opposite walls as Theo crawled into an alcove nearby, his hands fumbling with the restraints. Moments later, a muffled cry echoed from the darkness, a convincing ruse that drew the guards toward their supposed quarry. Taking advantage of the distraction, Kiera signaled to Erin and they surged forward, covering the remaining distance between them and their escape route in record time. They dropped into the maintenance tunnel and began making their way upward, the steady hum of machinery providing a comforting counterpoint to the chaos erupting outside. As they ascended, the sounds grew louder, sirens blaring, screams rising like a frenzied chorus from the streets above. The air thickened with smoke and dust kicked up by the skirmishes breaking out across the city. Protesters clashed with authorities in every direction, their numbers swelling with each passing minute as more citizens caught wind of Kara's leaked evidence. The trio emerged from the tunnel system onto a rooftop near City Hall, where a massive crowd had assembled to demand answers about the Neuralink program and Director Zane's role in it. Atop the building, a large screen displayed a haggard-looking Zane, attempting to reassure the public that he was working tirelessly to rectify the situation. Kiera's gaze locked onto him for an instant, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and apprehension. She knew they couldn't afford to linger. Their presence here would soon be detected, and any hope of exposure would vanish along with them. With Aaron and Theo by her side, she plunged into the seething mass of protesters, pushing toward the steps leading up to City Hall. The journey was a blur of elbows and fists, as Kiera fought her way through the crowd without breaking stride. On the steps above, she spotted Director Zane pacing anxiously behind his security detail, surrounded by advisors and aides. With Aaron and Theo flanking her, Kiera launched herself forward with a battle cry, determined to confront him in person and force the truth into the public eye. Zane's eyes widened as he recognized Kiera, a flicker of panic crossing his features before he regained his composure. "You're making a grave mistake, young lady," he declared, raising his voice above the din of the crowd. "I can assure you your neural link was for your own protection." "I know exactly what it was for," Kiera interrupted, her words carrying across the roiling sea of protesters. "And I won't let you silence me any longer. The truth is out there, in our memories, on every screen and in every heart that's been awakened tonight." As she spoke, a surge of energy seemed to emanate from the crowd itself. Hands shot up bearing makeshift signs with slogans like "Free Our Minds" and "Justice for All." Voices rose in unison, chanting, "Director Zane must fall, and we want truth, not tyranny." Zane's face turned ashen beneath his immaculate skin, his eyes darting to the security detail beside him. The guards hesitated, unsure how to react against such overwhelming odds, for they were no longer merely protecting a man, they were caught up in the same web of deception he'd spun. Kiera seized the moment, her words spilling out with a fervor that matched the crowd's energy. "We've had enough of your lies and manipulation," she shouted above the din. "Tonight, we rise against oppression, with knowledge, with courage, and with the power of our own memories." Her voice echoed through City Hall Plaza, mingling with Aaron's and Theo's cries as they stood shoulder to shoulder with her. In that instant, Kiera felt a strange sensation coursing through the air. It was as if every citizen in that vast throng had been awakened by their defiance, each one reaching out to reclaim their stolen identity, their dignity, their right to think for themselves. And Director Zane? He was left standing alone on those steps, his authority crumbling beneath him. The city's residents would no longer be pawns in a game. The night air pulsed with energy as Kiera's impassioned speech ignited the crowd's resolve. Faces that had once been blank, expressionless behind their neural links, now glowed with determination under the city lights. Amidst this sea of awakening citizens, Aaron and Theo stood by Kiera's side, united in their quest for freedom. As Zane's guards began to close in on them, a chorus of boos rang out across City Hall Plaza. The security detail faltered, exchanging uneasy glances. One officer tentatively raised his hand, signaling the others to hold back. It was a momentary reprieve, but enough time for Kiera and her friends to rally their supporters. "Now is our chance," Kiera urged, grasping Aaron's arm and nodding toward Theo. The three of them charged forward into the crowd, using their combined voices to drown out any remaining hesitation. "We will not be silenced. We demand a new tomorrow." The protesters surged forward, engulfing Zane and his guards in their midst. Amidst the chaos, Kiera locked eyes with her former director once more. This time, there would be no escaping accountability. With the city's residents now fully aware of the Neuralink program's sinister intentions, they refused to let Zane dictate their lives. "We've got him," someone shouted as a group of protesters seized Director Zane by his arms and legs, restraining him from fleeing further into the crowd. "He can't control us anymore." Kira felt a surge of pride and relief as she watched her nemesis being taken away, no longer able to manipulate or suppress anyone's thoughts. The neural links might still linger on their foreheads, but they were now emblems of resistance rather than tools of oppression. As the police attempted to restore order by deploying tear gas and stun grenades, the protesters fought back with makeshift shields and homemade smoke bombs. Aaron, Theo, and Kira continued to lead the charge, pushing forward alongside the crowd towards City Hall's central entrance. "We won't stop until we reach the heart of this tyranny," Kira declared above the cacophony, her voice hoarse from shouting but unbroken in spirit. "We will not rest until every last trace of Director Zane's corruption is eradicated." At long last, they reached City Hall's massive wooden doors, once a symbol of power and control, now serving as an entry point for freedom. With the help of others, they managed to pry open the heavy iron hinges. The crowd surged forward, pouring into the building like a tidal wave. Inside, the hallways echoed with cries of liberation, the sound amplified by the acoustics of the old architecture. Kiera and her companions led the way, each step carrying them closer to their ultimate goal, the office where Director Zane had overseen his sinister schemes. As they neared the door, a figure emerged from the shadows. Jax, the engineer who had helped them uncover the truth about the neural link program. His face was gaunt and drawn, his eyes sunken with exhaustion, and haunted, but his eyes shone with resolve as he handed Kira an encrypted flash drive. "I managed to recover some old project files. They contain evidence of Zane's plans for global control. This will help expose everything." Kiara took the device, her fingers closing around it with gratitude. Together they faced the door that had been locked against them, now standing open in defiance. Director Zane was waiting inside, his expression twisted with desperation and rage as he beheld the crowd of rebels converging upon him. "You fools," he spat at Kira and Aaron. "You'll never be free. I have contingency plans in place." Kira cut him off, her voice ringing out clear across City Hall Plaza. "Your reign is over, Zane. The people demand justice for the crimes you've committed against us." As she spoke, dozens of police officers marched into the hall behind her and Aaron's forces, not to quell the uprising, but to arrest Director Zane and his accomplices on charges of treason and human rights violations. The crowd erupted in cheers as the tyrant's world crumbled around him. Kiera watched with a sense of triumph and closure, knowing that they had finally succeeded in abolishing the Neuralink program and shattering its grip over their minds. In the aftermath, the city began to rebuild itself, not just physically but also spiritually. A new government was formed by the very citizens who had risen against oppression, promising transparency and democracy as guiding principles. For Kira, Aaron, Theo, and Jax, the journey toward freedom had been arduous, fraught with danger and deceit, yet their perseverance had paid off in ways they could hardly have imagined. Standing together on that same City Hall Plaza a year later, this time without neural links obscuring their thoughts, they raised their arms high in victory. The city's residents joined in, celebrating the dawn of a new era where every individual was free to think, feel, and dream unfettered by tyranny or manipulation. And Kira, the young woman who had once felt trapped inside her own mind, smiled with unreserved joy at the world she had helped create, a world where everyone could walk proudly into the future, their memories intact, their spirits untamed, and their hearts free to beat as one. The end.